Hello everyone and welcome to the Auto Guide Show. This week Kyle drives a giant SUV. I drive an SUV you may never heard of and isn't here yet. And two iconic sports cars may become siblings. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you order the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, so kicking us off on the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. Kyle went south and drove a monster. I mean, it's not the biggest SUV out there, but it's up there.
It's pretty close, and it hasn't actually changed in dimensions. So it is the 2025 Lincoln Navigator. Oh, Mike, it feels weird. It feels weird to drive something like this, especially because I actually drove this immediately after driving the Lucid Gravity that we talked about last week, because the Gravity feels like the future, and yeah.
Well, you know what? There's a big market for these cars still. I mean, it kept Stellantis going for quite a while.
Yeah.
And may again one day. But no, I know what you're saying. I drove the Nautilus. I mean, it's like a baby version of this. It's for a different kind of customer than we are now, but we probably will be in 30 years.
I mean, maybe, as long as I don't live anywhere near a city. So the big deal is that the Navigator, it's the same vehicle underneath. I know they say this is a new generation, but it's the same platform, and that's fine, I guess. Same powertrain, also fine. The EcoBoost V6, I guess Lincoln doesn't call it EcoBoost, but anyway, it's, the familiar 3.5 liter. It's powerful. It's just that it just does the job, right? And I guess that's not really the point of these vehicles. No one's buying them for the fancy engines unless they're buying an Escalade V. But it lacks the soundtrack of a V8 that the Escalade has, or doesn't have the smoothness of like an inline six from a German. But if you're buying German, you're not getting a body on frame. So the big change for the Navigator is that it is way more techy inside. Like the Nautilus that you mentioned, it has that big, super wide screen at the base of the windshield. Although, because this is a much wider vehicle, it's also flanked by 2 speakers just to fill up the space. And I know you were mostly positive about the screen, and I am too. I think mostly it works, and they've made some upgrades, so there's more stuff you can actually put up there. There's a nice looking little analog clock thing. I'm still just blown away by the inconsistency of saying that something like that is safety focused, because it is like right in your field of view, right? But then it's like, you have to adjust the vents. You got to look down at a screen to do it. Like, that feels backwards to me. Yeah, it's spacious.
I will say, I mean, I said it then, and I don't know, is it you said it's up against the base of the windshield, right? And that's what I kind of like, at least the part of the screen. I can't even say the screen because it's all one, but the part in front of the driver, because it's like a head up / traditional driver. It's like the BZ4X in the Toyota. It's nice because it actually helps with safety, but then you're down here trying to change.
Yeah, and I like that. And the Lincoln also has the turn signal side camera activation that pops up on whichever side of your instruments when you do it, just like other brands. And that's good, because this is a very big vehicle, so it's helping you navigate it. And it always feels large. That's the other thing, is you never think that you're in something smaller, although they have tricked you into feeling like you have better visibility, because that screen is low, right? And like, so the dashboard is low, but the hood is the same height as before. It's just, you feel like you have a better view.
So like everything you're saying about it, I think the person who's going to buy this, or the market for this, it doesn't matter. They know it's big. So I think all the issues you'd have with it being feeling big or whatnot, I mean, the only thing that matters for this vehicle is how does it stack up against an Escalade. And we haven't driven the most up-to-date Escalade. We are very soon. And then when this comes on, I mean, that's just a natural comparison. I haven't done a Navigator Escalade in a decade. So, because that's the thing, like you said, it's not like you wouldn't want almost to be in the city. These they don't go there. They only go in the city to pick and drop people off that are
Yeah.
going to the airport executives. And then this is the suburban fancy family hauler, just like the Escalade and Range Rovers and all those sort of things.
Yeah. And so I think it does a pretty good job. This, I feel weird saying this, so I hope maybe, listeners or viewers add their own thoughts on this. I feel like it now appeals a little more to women. And I mean that in a good way, because these sorts of vehicles tend to be pretty macho. And the big change is like it's a spa on wheel, it's a wellness center. Lincoln is really focusing on the interior treatments, and they are really nice. And this Rejuvenate program that, plays a video and reclines your seat and gives you a massage and blows air on certain parts. It does help you calm down. And Lincoln did a study with Purdue University that actually shows measured results out of this, which I thought was fascinating. And so I think there's some sort of appeal of a calming, capable vehicle in an increasingly hectic world.
Does it spray sense?
It does spray sense. Yeah, okay, it does.
So I'd like to be honest.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe you need the calming after you try to street park it in Boston or something.
Yeah. So overall, I think it's actually kind of, to sum all this up, I think they're subtly refocusing where the Navigator is in the class. It's like if you want the brash, like techie American take on luxury, there's the Escalade. If you want something a little softer and more pampering, which really I think is the point of big SUVs, then this does that.
All right. Well, we need to move on. Just two quick things. One, I'm going to steal your line and change it. The Navigator's for people who think the Escalade's too sporty. Just like the Nautilus with the RX. And I apologize, Lincoln, in advance, but the angle and that color combo you took, it looks like a Durango.
Oh, I really like this color.
It's just the way that their grill is, that this one goes into the lights, it really looks crossbar.
Gotcha. But I see what you mean now.
If you had a different grill, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, so while you were out driving that, I was in the opposite corner of the US driving something that isn't even here and won't be here for at least 5 years.
And it not is that.
Yeah, and not what I drove. So it's the Cupra. So it was more a get to know the brand and sample our products than like a first drive. So Cupra, for people who don't know, I'll keep this brief. They are a sub-brand of the Volkswagen Group. And they used to be a trim. Well, not they. There used to be a trim on Seats and I think just Seats. I don't think Skoda.
Yeah, just Seats.
And it was Cupra, and it was like the designation for their sportiest cars, the sportiest hot hatches. It was like their BMW M or Cadillac CTS-V. I mean, it's not like they're competing against those guys, and the Cupra name is made up, and it simply is Cup Racing, Cupra, Cup Racing. So there you go.
Simple.
They got very popular, these vehicles, and they spun off a sub-brand in 2018. And in 2020, they had $300 million in sales, and last year they had $2.1 billion. So it's overachieved compared to its parent, Seat, that it was kind of spun off. It's actually taken some of the model names, like it sells the Leon now. You don't get it from the other brand, and Volkswagen's come out and said that this is replacing Seat. Like they're shuttering it over the next couple of years. They don't have a timeline or anything, but I would imagine sort of like when my beloved Oldsmobile died. It's just as these model runs end and the next gen's ready, then that's that.
Oh, so this is Buick?
And no, this is Pontiac if you made the right decision, because that's the thing.
Yeah,
all their cars, they look fantastic. The insides, they're nice. Like it's Volkswagen parts inside for the most part. Which I don't complain about, except for the stupid slider infotainment system, which this had. But it's the newest software. It's the one that's in the new GTI. So it's better. It's just not got buttons.
Yeah.
But it's like they've taken bits and pieces from probably some of the European models we don't see, some Volkswagen, and even some Audi, and put them together. And it's a really nice interior. And I was driving the Formentor, which is not coming here, which maybe is best. It's named after a region in Spain, like all of their cars are, but if you say it fast, it sounds like you're talking about the cars fermenting, the Fermentor. So the cars that are coming here will be all new nameplates, all new models. But this one, it's basically it's built on the modular VW platform. So you can't say it's only based on this car, but the closest relation is, let's say, Taos. It's raised up. It's front wheel drive only. It's an all wheel drive, and there's three
Okay.
power. So you can get there's a 150 horsepower version. So like basically, I think it's with the Taos's engine pre facelift. This one I drove has the current 1.5 with the 177 matched to a very powerful electric motor, and it has 275 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque
Ooh.
going through the front wheels. And if that's not enough, there's a 333 PS, so about a 330 horsepower front-wheel drive version. So it's like the Golf R engine in a Taos with front-wheel drive in a very sporty body. Like this thing has cross-drilled Brembo brakes. The bucket seats are like, I haven't been in cloth bucket seats that aggressive since like a mid 2000s WRX STI, like where it just has like the squared off side bolsters and thigh bolsters. It fits me perfect, but I know a lot of body types that wouldn't. It's a 3,600 pound car, so it's not light.
Okay. But
And 0 to 60, they only say 7 seconds, which seems very conservative. But when I
can it just not get grip?
yeah, I was gonna say when I hammered it with the traction control on, it was just a mess of the traction control freaking out and me getting no power. And then I turned it off, and it's one of those cars that its beauty is once you're rolling. Like you can just on the highway, it goes from like 40 to 60. I was like, oh, like yeah, and it drives well. I mean, Volkswagen vehicles drive well, and this one drives even better. So it'd be like a Taos R kind of.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there a more powerful front drive car on sale? Because I don't think so.
So, well, it's not a car; it's an SUV.
Oh,
but
yeah,
anyway, yeah, I was very impressed with the first drive because this was fully made for Europe and not here. So the suspension's on the stiff side, and some of the things like the front drive, like that would definitely be all-wheel drive here. And this car's been shipped all over the world, so it's a little squeaky and rattly. And the transmission dual clutch did some weird things, but it's a good first impression.
Okay.
My only two questions are: is there room for another Volkswagen? Like, because I guess it would slot between VW and Audi, but on a sporty side. And two, is this the right time to bring a new manufacturer from overseas? Now, granted, they addressed that right away, and they said they would secure access to one of Volkswagen Group's 3 U.S. plants to build whatever they're bringing. So I think that also clues you in that whatever they're going to make will be probably closely related to a Volkswagen product. I know they can flex line, but
it's gonna be an Atlas. No.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like,
all right,
if they take the Hyundai Kia approach, which this really felt like the underpinnings are familiar and some of the switchgear, but they're very different products all around, and they're just trying to increase sales out. Like, let Volkswagen go more premium, maybe, or more whatever, and this could go the sportier side. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see.
Cool.
Moving on to, so the Lexus ES is new. Yeah, it's not, since there's no Avalon, it needed something new to share a platform with, and it's clearly the Crown, and it's a Crown. When I saw it, I was like, oh, Lexus Crown.
Except it's way bigger. It's huge. It's gained like half a foot. It looks unlike, and well, I guess I don't want to say unlike any other Lexus because it does have some RZ to the front end, but as a sedan, it looks quite different. And Lexus is making an electric version and a hybrid version.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm curious to see how that works. It's obviously a platform that can take both. We don't know much else, just the looks and the drivetrain. I'll just say this: the ES used to be like such a go-to car, like I'm talking a long time ago, and I think it's slowly dwindled down. So kind of like the Avalon, Toyota's trying something new. Well, here Lexus is trying something new, so good on them to experiment and see what's going to work.
Yeah, so for listeners, we will be heading to Toyota headquarters in like a month to see a ton of stuff. We don't know what yet. I'm hoping this is there because I really want to see it in person to know exactly what it kind of looks like, because it's very striking in these photos since it released in Shanghai. But I wonder if this means that Lexus will do what brands are doing and kill off a sedan, right? Because it has the ES and the IS, and the IS is pretty old and also a pretty niche product, whereas the ES outsells it, I think something like 3 to 1. So I I don't know. I feel like this is going to lower the average age of ES buyers from whatever it is now, 70. Like
Yeah.
it looks a lot sportier, but I hope it. I really like the current ES because it's one of the few cars out there that isn't sporty. It's very
Hmm.
comfortable, and so I hope that remains.
Yeah, I drove it on a long trip 2 years ago, and it was nice.
Right?
But this we got lots still to come on the podcast. Let's get through these last two things. So next, there's not much we can say about this, but Slate, the manufacturer that we've heard about and was coming, they released their 2027 pickup, and it's it looks like a half finished vehicle because it kind of is, because there's
Yeah,
all these bits and pieces. You can turn it into an SUV, you can turn it into this, you can turn it into that. As it stands, I was like, oh, I like that 3-foot bed, that's going to be useful. I don't think they should have called it the pickup. I know it's only a two-seater, but like, position this as like an SUV, like the old school ones where the back part popped off. Like, I think
eh,
that's how, and then you could pay to get the seats removed, and now it's a pickup. But I guess
yeah.
they just figured
I
Americans pickups, whatever.
I think like yeah, like I get that the length is not a problem or is kind of a problem. I guess if you're planning on using a bunch of slate trucks to transport plywood, but I think the handy thing here is like it's cheap, it's small, it's smaller than a Civic hatchback, and so the idea is if you're using it in the city to
Does
get
it carry
around
more than a
places.
Civic hatchback?
Yeah, well, but I think like it's handy to just have an open bed, right? To just throw stuff in. You're not going to be hauling stuff. It's just I want to be able to easily put stuff in and take stuff out because I'm moving at short distances. And there is the SUV body, so you can always put that on.
I get what you're saying, which makes sense. Like, you don't need a big truck, but like, why? Like, there's no point to this, because why? What does this do that another vehicle that size can't do? Like, the bed can't carry big things. So yes, for little things. Well, why don't you just get a hatchback or a trunk? Like, are you carrying like a
Be-
cubic foot of potting soil constantly?
because
And it's
this
only a
is going to
two-seater.
start at like 20
Yeah.
grand.
Well, I know, but could have put a body on it or something.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't get it as a pickup, but I get it as a cool concept. I mean, we'll see if we see this for real. I mean, there's how many cars do we hear is coming and we never see
yeah,
again.
true.
Um,
I Go ahead.
I think it's coming. Like, they have good backing.
Yeah, it's
It'll
like
be
Amazon.
niche. Yeah, it'll be sold. Yeah, like, it won't be sold through traditional dealers and stuff like that. But I'm curious to see, because what if they're smart? They already have, what is it, 150 accessories at launch or something, they said. And if they open source that, that's, I think, where its success will be. If you give people the dimensions and let them build all sorts of crazy stuff for it, then yeah, like, this could take over the small delivery industry.
Yeah,
Like, make this a
yeah.
van, make this like, just put a panel box around it. Now it's like the best flower delivery vehicle. That's an EV and stuff. So
It'll be like a K truck, like a mini truck. And people like that. I think utilitarian cool is in, and I think the price and the size of this are really appealing, and also the looks. Like I like that this looks super super basic. It has a really low shoulder line. I Yeah, I hope it makes it.
it's like that old Cherokee pickup, just shrunk.
Yeah.
All right, last story. Just get through this quickly. There's a rumor that Honda and Nissan could be partnering up. Stop me if you've heard this before. But this time they are talking about potentially sharing between a GTR and an NSX, which in the 90s, if you said that, people would look at you like you're absolutely crazy. I get the thinking behind it and the philosophy. It makes total sense, because we've talked a million times on the show how it's hard to warrant the budget to just build a sports car, especially a Halo car.
Hmm.
Um, the GTR was never a hybrid, but they made concepts that were, and they had race concepts that were. So I could totally see if the GTR is a front engine hybrid rear and the NSX is the opposite. But I don't know. I just don't see it, because like, one of them has to go with the other engine, because I don't see them literally flipping the drivetrain around for the other vehicles. So
Maybe they would. It's just easier to do it that way.
I mean, if it's a powerful enough motor for the back, like,
Yeah.
but then you'd have like a transversely mounted engine in the front of the GT. Just, yeah, it'd be weird, but
Yeah, I mean this feels like this came from a Nissan higher up, if I remember right, saying something about like, oh, we would consider this or we could explore this, and it's just like, is this trying to mend the broken relationship? Like, Honda, please come back. we'll let you build another NSX, please, please,
I
please.
mean, if we're talking, I think it would be BRZ FRS, where one would have the lead and the other would be a slightly modified re-veg. So I really think, yeah, it would be an NSX, and the GTR would become mid-engine. And I mean, that's not the craziest thing to think about. Like the Corvette did, like it could totally happen, and then they could go even crazier with their capabilities if the engine's now sort of in the right spot, splitting the weight. So
Yeah, but the Corvette wasn't built on like a Mustang platform. I don't know. Look, I love the GTR and the NSX. I both of us are a product of Gran Turismo. No, I don't want. I'm being a hypocrite here. I don't want a GTR and an NSX if it means a platform shared version. I do like the Supra, even though the Supra is a platform sharing
I was gonna
thing.
say, what if it turns out like the Supra and the Z4? Because you like
Yeah,
both of those as
yeah,
different vehicles. So
because these feel so different, right? Like in my mind, the NSX was always a mid-engine, like experimental, everyday supercar. The GTR was a front-engine beast that picked on Porsches. Uh,
but again, I mean, for both those, like that's almost 30 years ago now. So things have changed, and that's like the Corvette went mid-engine because it kind of hit its peak. And I think the GTR was crazy when it came out, and it kind of hit its peak. So, you know, if Nissan wants to make a Halo, maybe you don't even call it the GTR. Maybe you call it just the R36, and it's a mid-engine supercar killer. Something.
You know what? I know how to really not piss off any enthusiasts. Make this entirely electric and just have it rear drive for the NSX and all-wheel drive for the GTR. Done. No one will be offended at all.
No, not at all. But it goes to 30,000 RPM.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break on the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors. I'll be back with Greg to talk about some spring cleaning products. And then after that break, Kyle was off traveling the world, so I will be talking to our guest, and he will return after the F1 segment with Colum to wrap up the show. Swapping out your tires? There's nothing like it. With eBay, you'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at prices you'll love. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back. Joining us once again, we have Greg to talk about the latest and greatest products, and I see you've picked one that's timely for spring, hopefully finally starting to show up on the east side of the continent here.
Let's hope so. Fingers crossed. It is pretty warm out these days. We'll see if it sticks around, but this is a great time of year to bust out your pressure washer. So the one, we've got a whole list of them here, frankly, depending on how much money you want to spend, where you might want to get your pressure washer. But literally the one right off the top, I have this Sunjoe one, or one pretty similar to it. I've had it for a few years, so I probably have an older model. Sunjoes are pretty ubiquitous. They're sort of the alter ego of the Snow Joes, if you need things like that, which both of us often do in the winter. But this is a pretty good one. I've used it on my patio, tried to figure things out about how to get these sort of aging bricks to look a little bit better. And of course, for our purposes, I like to adjust the pressure levels, but they're good to kind of give your car that sort of first heavy duty wash of spring. It's sort of like having a car wash in your driveway. So I don't do this every time. You just don't really need to, but you certainly can. And it's good. I kind of get off that like grime and the salt, that sort of things. And also pressure washers are great for your tires because, hey, they can definitely take the punishment. You don't need to worry about the paint or anything like that. You need to blast those tires. And then maybe in a future podcast, I have some tire products and wheel cleaners I'd like to talk about. But I think that's a great, very specific use for these pressure washers as well.
Yeah, and pressure washers aren't like what they used to be. Like when I was younger, not like a kid, but many years ago, it was you needed gas if you wanted any pressure to do anything. The electric ones now produce so much pressure. That's more than enough. I have one that I've had for almost 10 years now. And same thing, I use it to pressure wash my bricks, the interlocking, and then obviously the cars. It's great. And it just plugs in and you put on the hose and off you go.
Yeah, I think it's they're very versatile. You could use them for so many different things. My 7-year-old actually kind of enjoys blasting just into the open spaces in the yard, so they're fun. A couple other ones on this list, the Stanley and the Works are actually solid as well. I don't own those, but I've had good experiences with similar products from both of those brands. I actually, funny non sequitur here, sort of related. I just got this relatively inexpensive mini chainsaw. I think they actually call them more like pruners or clippers. It was very cheap, and I got it off of, we'll say the, sort of the big box store of, virtual websites, without naming it. And it almost chopped off my finger. So I think in the case of like pressure washers, definitely any sort of chainsaw of any size, I think it's a good idea to go with a name brand. So, that's where things like Sunjo can be pretty good. Stanley, Ryobi, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. So if people want to see our list, they can go to the best pressure washers for cleaning your car on AutoGuide.com. And thank you for stopping by, and we will see you next week with some more spring cleaning, maybe.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there, it's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind. eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back. This week, I am here on my own with our special guest. Kyle is busy in other places. Welcome. If you could just introduce yourself and what you do.
Sure. My name is Kamil. What I do for the past almost 20 years, 18 years, I've been writing about cars, and I'm one of those people who nobody knows, but probably you've read some stuff by me. That's how I've been introducing myself, and it seems to work pretty well. But I've been writing about cars. I've been doing all kinds of stupid stuff with cars. I've been racing lemons. I've taken on some interesting side projects recently that I can talk to you about later. Cars are my passion. They have been my whole life. And, almost 20 years ago, I started a blog just because everyone else did, but it was an outlet for my passion, really, because my day job is something completely different. And then there's my family life. So this was like the area that was like my therapy, if you will, my escape from everything, and it was cool sharing it.
Yeah, so like you said, no one knows you. I mean, a lot of people in the industry know you. I've known you for a long time, and I guess it started through social media before we ever met at a trip or anything.
I think so. Yeah, I think we met on the one trip at the it was the Challenger Hellcat launch in was it Oregon or Washington State?
Yeah, it was it was in Washington State. It was like 3 hours from Seattle, and it poured rain. Yeah.
They put us on the racetrack in the pouring rain with a 700 horsepower Hellcat. What could possibly go wrong?
I remember they had the whole line there. It was pretty cool because I remember the GT was there, the all-wheel drive, and that was like the fastest because it could actually get power down. But yeah, that was a fun trip. That was the first time I believe we met, but we knew each other for years online because that was back in the early 2010s when like Twitter was where it was at with car people. Pretty much, we were all on there. I still talk to so many people to this day from that group, and you included. And you said about lemons. I remember I was gonna race with you right around the time my son was born. I just didn't have the time or money to.
Well, what was your excuse? Having an infant? That's
Yeah,
way.
yeah, they're a little time consuming and pricey. So yeah, you went in a bit on sort of what you've done more recently, but we always ask everyone sort of what got you into cars. But the cars you grew up around were very different than the crappy
Yeah,
American cars that we grew up
yeah,
with in the
yeah.
80s.
They were much crappier. So I was
Hey,
born
we
in
got
Poland.
some in Canada. We did get some in Canada.
You did. I'm very sorry about this. So I was born in Poland in late 70s, so I'm aging myself. But growing up, I lived there until I was 10 years old when my parents brought me to America. But I was just always just born with it from when I was 1 or 2 years old. I was just only always on about cars and not much else. And there were relatively few cars. They were just the same cars. We're talking, you know, three different domestic cars, and the rest were some kind of. Most of them were Easter Bloc imports, and then the really smart, wealthy people managed to bring something over from Germany, which is still a popular thing to do in Poland, is bringing cars over from outside the country. Um, I started going back to Poland a couple of years ago just to check it out. When I came here to the States, I haven't gone back for 25 years. And when I went back, I got a lot of interest in these obscure, weird Eastern Bloc cars. Um, and then I started writing about them. And funny enough, people started reaching out to me for comments. Like someone saw like an old Volga a couple of towns over, and he was a writer for the Boston Globe, and he reached out to me. He's like, "What the hell is this?" So I gave him a whole synopsis of what he was looking at. And now a lot more and more of these cars are coming. Lada Niva is sort of becoming like an icon in the States here. It's not really a good car. Let's just
We
say
were
that.
selling like, I actually think at its peak, it was selling like 40,000 a year up here in Canada. It was popular for a while.
And how many of them are left now?
Yeah, well, you know what? It's funny because you said it's becoming popular. There's like a cult up here of people who buy every single one and try to keep them
Yeah.
going. But
So,
they were cheap and small and off roady. Like that was on the tracker and stuff was popular. So it was like a
yep.
way more cheaper version of that. So people just bought them for a couple of years and dumped them.
So funny enough, my father actually owns one. So my parents split up. My father stayed in Poland, and I came to the States with my mom. And he actually bought he always wanted a Lada Niva. That was his whole life since they were introduced, I think, in 1977.
Yeah.
And he always wanted one. He was like, "This is my only car." I'm like, "Well, why don't you get a Jeep or something, or something cooler?" He's like, "Nope, nope, this is all I want." So he now has a 2016 Niva that he bought brand new. Yeah, because you can still get them brand new.
Like the
Uh,
same 77 car just still being made.
yeah, they upped the interior a bit.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
made it more modern, but it's not like it has navigational system or anything.
It's like the
It still,
Beetle. Like
yeah,
how it
kind of.
lasted for decades.
It still has the 1.7 with a 5-speed manual, and I think it's got locking differentials front and back, as well as a 2-speed transfer case. So that's what that's what makes it competent off road. But yeah, you can still definitely get them new.
Yeah, I was just looking it up to see if I get total sales. So it was only 12,000 a year at its peak, but we had it till 97. So we had it almost 20 years. And we also got the Yugo, the US did as well. And we got
Yep.
the original Pony. Hey, we got some
So
interesting cars here.
you also had the Lada Riga, also known as
Yeah.
2107. So
Yeah, yeah.
here's the funny thing. We have a mutual friend who used to run the website. You may heard of Jalopnik. Um, what is his name? It's been a long day for me. But he at one time bought a Lada sedan from Canada. Remember when Jalopnik used to do like battles of crappy cars?
Yeah, yeah.
He on a dare bought one of these cars and turned it into a Lemons car. I'm talking about Rory Carroll.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
And he
That's
turned it into a Lemons car. And he did 2 races with it and then just put it away wet and didn't touch it again. And one time at a New York Auto Show, I said to him, "Hey, this was in this time where I was rediscovering all these Eastern European cars." I said to him, "Hey, what are you doing with that Lada? It's been parked for 6 years." He's like, "I'm not really doing anything." I'm like, "Hey, listen, if you ever want to get rid of it, I'm going to be stupid enough to take it off your hands." And he said, okay. So, a few years go by and I get a phone call. He's like, "Hey, if I give you the Lada, are you going to race it?" I'm like, "Yes." So I had it shipped over to Boston. Unfortunately, it came not as pretty as I expected it to be. They actually had a big crash with it that they didn't fix very well. So I got it over here, and I tried to figure out how to get it running on a budget. Pretty much right away, I concluded that this won't be a good Lemons car just because it's so unsafe. So my Lemons car is a Buick Regal, like a boat from 2001, and that thing can take a hit, and it has taken many hits, and it just keeps on going. I was afraid that in this little poop box of a Lada, somebody's gonna hit us, and that's gonna be it. That's gonna be my legs or something, But I still wanted to get it going, and unfortunately, it was one of those projects that just I failed at, mostly due to my limited resources. And Rory Carroll actually said one day, "Hey, if you can't get it to run, I'll take it back." I gave it back to him, and I think he put in subframes from he put a Miata engine in it and a subframes from like a BRZ or something, and he did like a hill climb race with it. It runs and it looks magnificent. So that's the story of a Canadian market Lada that made it to me.
Those were FR, right? Front rear.
Yes, sir.
So in Canada,
they didn't know any better at the time. There was no logic of making it front wheel drive. It's based on the Fiat 124 from the 60s.
I was gonna say, yeah, the 124 like just stuck around forever. The rebadged ones. So in Canada, we had our own name for it. I guess they did some research or they just picked a name, and it was called the Lada Signet.
Yes, yes, that's what it was.
But I don't know why they picked that name here. I think my favorite was a Cuba that had the Sputnik. Some country had the Lada, but anyway, yeah, those cars. There are a lot of clubs that get together, and they're probably doing what Rory did. Like the original parts are all long rusted out of them, so it's hard to keep them going. But
so I sourced parts. There was a Cuban guy in Florida, of all places, that had all the parts that he was shipping, I guess, from Cuba to all these yahoos who still had these cars. And there is another place, well, it's in Ukraine. I don't know how well it's doing right now, but they were very trustworthy in terms of shipping you parts. So you can still get one of those old Ladas here and not be desperate for parts. There's a lot of community and ways to get parts for these things.
I'm sure there's millions of them sitting across in Europe in various junkyards too. You could pull. You didn't have the love of salt on the roads that we do in North America, so you probably didn't rust.
You want to bet? No.
Oh,
things would rust. Yeah, things would rust really quick. They weren't very, rust proof to begin with. So even smaller amounts, which they still had a lot, got to them really quickly.
Yeah, I remember the Yugos were terrible for that. Yeah. They lasted a couple of years.
One of the things that the Soviets did, because it was the Soviets before Russians, when they got the Fiat 124, they made all the sheet metal and floor pans thicker for that reason. So it gained a lot of weight, which obviously was not good for its handling and ride. But they made everything thicker just for that reason. And that metal was thick on that car. Like you could hit it with a sledgehammer and not do much damage.
That's such a 70s, I mean Soviet, but more so just 70s solution. Well, this is rusting. Instead of getting better metal or proofing it, let's just make it thicker so it rusts slower.
Right, make it bigger. Right.
Yeah. So so you're saying you came over to the States and you started a blog to sort of.
Well, no, I came over. I was 10 years old.
Yeah, but I'm fast forwarding. So
okay, yeah. So I started my blog 20 some years later when I had an infant and a day job, and so the problem was I used to live in a city, work in a city about a mile from home. I had an infant daughter who's now 18, and my wife I had a really sweet E46 because she took it because she was commuting outside into reverse commute into the suburbs for work, and I was just right in the city. So I didn't even get to drive much during the week. And one thing, how I got into riding was when I came to the States, the first thing I did was I took any money that I could get and I subscribed to all the car magazines. So starting like 1989, I have every issue of Motor Trend and most issues of Current Driver and Road and Track. because that's what I grew up. That's how I learned English, was by reading them. And
See, I got all mine back there too.
Huh?
I got all mine back there. I was about 92 to 2002 car and drivers. Same thing.
Yeah. So this was like my education, and then I said, this is what I want to do when I get older. And then, I finished engineering, and I somehow started a career that was in transportation. So in my day job, I deal mostly with trains and buses. So it's mass transit. Because I wanted to live in the city. I wanted to live in New York City. I ended up living in Boston, which is close enough. But I wanted to be I didn't want to move out to Michigan. Not that there's anything wrong with Michigan. I wanted to stay in the Northeast. So that's where my career went. But I had this passion in me that I needed an outlet for. That's why I started writing.
Yeah, so I did this as a full-time job, and then I went and worked at a day job, sort of like what you're saying, when I had that infant. And then after a couple of years, I started up a blog that no one read, but just kind of wrote stuff for other car-loving people online, and it didn't get much traffic, but it made me realize I wanted to get back into doing this full-time.
Yeah. So for me, it was always, I didn't care who really read it, but it was just, I did it mostly for myself, just to I think it may have been therapy, some kind of a homegrown therapy at the time,
So did that turn into your site you have now, or was that later down the road?
So my website got popular fairly quickly, mostly because I wasn't just regurgitating press releases. I was writing original crap, and people liked it, and so a lot of different, back in the day, you used to have a blog, and the other blog would link back to you or whatnot. You had the tip of the hat kind of a reference thing on the bottom of each post. Yeah. And I just wrote a lot of original stuff, and it was picked up mostly by Jalopnik at the time. And so my website grew fairly quickly. And then, like I met Jeff Glocker, and who started Hooniverse. And then we said, hey, why not combine our powers, which we had none of, but we did. And I sort of stuck around over there. And I never intended for this to be my full-time job, and it's never been. And I think that's why I really haven't lost my passion for it. I think once you start doing it full-time, and your income is dependent on it, that passion may go away, because you have to deal with all the other BS associated with it,
Yeah, we've talked about that on this show a couple times with different industries, because Kyle, who couldn't make it, he came from doing GT Planet, so Gran Turismo, and he said like it took him years of not wanting to touch a racing game or Gran Turismo after he left there, because that was life and that was your career, and like the fun leaves. And that's sort of why I started writing too when I first left, is because I missed it and I just wanted to have some fun. But you got to find a balance, because it is a job still, even though it sounds like a cool job, and it takes away some of the other stuff. So like I'm sure most of our people have heard your site, Universe, and been there. Like you said, maybe they don't know it was you, but that's where they can find you.
I mean, my name was always on it. There was a time where I used to contribute, 2 or 3 times a day, because my schedule allowed on it. Now, if I contribute once a week, it's a miracle. But we're trying to, we just sort of redid the site to go back to like what heydays of blog was, just a picture and a quick caption, for instance, or a question, something that's more engaging instead of storytelling for readers. And Jeff's been really pushing that, and it's working really well. I try to commit about half an hour a day to it if I can, and this week I've committed nothing, just because I haven't had the time. I also do other car related stuff as like a side project, so I'm stretched thin that a little bit,
Yeah, it's interesting you say you're going back to the picture and then the comment, because short form content seems to be really popular. I mean, I guess it started with sort of Instagram stories and shorts, but you're right, the original quick hit information is better than something that goes on and on that's being regurgitated. So we've really pushed up our news and short content as well as our reviews and stuff, because it used to not have that much.
Right. And I see, I used to be big on Twitter, and I'm not saying I used to be big on Twitter. I used to spend a lot of my time on Twitter and tweeting, and just because it was a very conversational piece. But a lot of media in recent years, for reasons we should not talk about, went really toxic, and you're just having all kinds of information, all kinds of crap thrown at you, where it's just becoming overwhelming, and it doesn't always go towards your interests or your passions, what it was, or even the people that you used to interact with now end up spewing the information that the things that you're not interested in because of the times we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no interest. I do have interest in this, but it's not something I want to discuss on a public medium. It's something that I want to keep for myself, because on a public medium, I just want to talk about cars because I know cars better than I know anything else. So this is why we're sort of going back to this, because all of us, there's I think 6 of us who contribute to Hooniverse right now, and basically all of us have given up on social media just because it became toxic and nasty and overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still there because of the job, but I fully agree. I mean, it's not hard for people to disagree with that. It's the X and I've never been on TikTok, but
No,
Facebook's
neither have I. Yeah.
Facebook's now just like families posting to each other. Instagram's still got a little bit of life to it, I find, but it's interesting you're finding a key direction, because I think that was part of it too, was a lot of sites started trying to be everything for everyone. And we were guilty of that too. And now we're really getting back to our customer base isn't that many avid car, like I'd say like car nerds like us that know like all these weird details. It's consumers, or it's people who have general car knowledge and they're looking for specific information. And that's what we cater to. Because your site is much more for the more hardcore enthusiast, and that's where I would go looking for that info too. Like it's
So it's funny. I was looking at I was Bring a Trailer. To give you a quick funny story, absolutely not connected to anything. I was on Bring a Trailer, and I saw this Toyota FJ Cruiser, and it was called the Not So Special Edition, NSSE. And what it was, during the tsunami in Japan, Toyota had some kind of production issues where they were going to, for 2010, they were going to do the first Trail Edition or Trail Teams FJ Cruiser. And for some reason, it didn't work out for them. So all the parts were not put on cars, only certain parts, and they all came in green color, but they were just shipped green and with no other special options on the car for that year. And basically, there was very few of them, probably like 200 cars made in total. And they became sort of iconic in a way that it was just kind of like getting a Matchbox car that has irregularities in it. It just became like this. And I started Googling them, and I'm like, oh, that could make an interesting article. And I'm Googling, not finding much of it until I find the first article that somebody specifically wrote about the not so special FJ Cruiser. And it was on Hooniverse. And I'm like, this is interesting. It wasn't written by me, but it was like on my own website. And I've never seen the article, but so much for writing on it,
Yeah, no, I mean that's success. Like you have a staff of writers, so you don't always see everything. I've had the same thing. We'll be talking about something, and someone will bring up a story on our site that I missed because it's out filming a video or is on a trip, and I just can't. I don't have the time to read everything that we post.
Impossible.
Yeah. So okay. So switching from our writing, let's go to your car. So you came here when you were 10. Were you a car owner by 16, or did you wait a bit? And what was your first car?
Not by 16, but by 17 in New Jersey. I got my license at 17. And yeah, I gave up playing sports, and I just got a job because I knew I needed a car right away. And I knew that my mom, being a single parent, she wasn't buying me one. So I had to get it. So my first car was an 84 Jeep CJ7 that was somehow freshly repainted, and it was a great deal. And I'm like, so I jumped right on it. What I didn't check for, I mean, I was 17. I didn't know anything about anything. It looked great from like 20 feet away, but it turns out that it had a ton of rust on it. You could see the road through the floors, but it didn't matter. I love that thing. So 84 Jeep CJ7 was my first vehicle.
Just paint over the rust and hope no one notices.
That's what it was. It was a decent paint job. It looked really good. It was a really sharp Jeep. And I did some, my modifications to it because, of course, I'm 17, right?
Yeah.
And that was my first car. And then going off to college, what are you pointing to?
That's like my Alero. I did all these mods to it that were ridiculous because it's your first car. It's what you do.
You have to. It's
Yeah,
like a rite of passage. The
yeah.
problem with me is most guys would stop doing modifications to cars, like maybe on their second car. But I'm not like most guys, and the car I'm driving today is, and the one I had previously was a little over the top. So my second car was a big switch to it was a '89 CRX SI.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. I
That's
think
good one.
I got into a big accident within the first month that I got it because
Ah,
I was
that was a
showing my.
good year. I like those later year ones with
You know
the
what it
one
didn't
six
have?
and
It didn't have an ABS, which would have saved me because A, I didn't know how to drive, and B, I was showing my friend how well the CRX handles on a twisty road that I didn't know very well. And then I was flying, and then I see a stop sign at the end, so I hit the brakes, and it was a little bit of a curve. So I nailed the curb
uh,
trying to stop the car going. I think the cop said I left about 110 feet of skid marks. So you do the math. But if I had ABS, I probably would have, made it around it.
yeah, those ABS back then we had quite a few at my house and mostly GM when they make that terrible noise as they're working.
Something? If it worked, it would have saved me at the time. But
I can't believe, and it's off topic, but I think it was either a Cavalier or a Safari. No, the Safari made the groaning noise, and the Cavalier it actually pulsated the pedal. Like that sounds like
give you a
not a
little
good
foot
idea.
massage.
Yeah, it was to let you know it's working, but I'm thinking like, should you really be putting pressure on and off someone when they're trying to brake? But
Yeah.
who knows? Uh, so your first vehicle sort of fits to what I know because you've always had sort of a thing for SUVs. It seems. Um, your
Yes
current,
and
well,
no.
your last two were right.
Yeah. So, no. Basically, because I have a family now, because we live in a city, the roads around here are so bad. Just there's potholes. They're just not repaired. They're just really bad roads. And then it wasn't just I wasn't. I've had. I think I have a total of 7 BMWs and 7 different Hondas, which was all of them were slammed lowered or chassis was modified for handling. But I got the SUVs more out of necessity rather than fun. But then again, my father was always 4x4s. There was never a car that I didn't like or whatever. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
my I had an MDX, which was just I had to get because I got it cheap and I was on the budget at the time. I replaced that with a Forerunner. I replaced the Forerunner with the Bronco, and then I got a JDM Land Cruiser Prado, which
Mm-hmm.
I just sold, and now I have the Bronco and a Lexus GX.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny because that's the same thing. I like all kinds of cars. Like I'm a big minivan advocate. I've never owned one, but I keep telling people like for family vehicle, you
It's
can't beat the space in there.
it's the most functional thing on wheels.
Yeah.
Like the Sienna, being all-wheel drive, ridiculously comfortable, roomy, spacious, fuel efficient, safe. Like, what else do you want from a vehicle?
And anyone who's had kids and infants, you don't realize how amazing sliding doors are when you're trying to put a baby in a car seat or get them out. But I've only ever owned the Ascent, and that was more through work. And my wife kind of took it off me anyway. I've always had cars, but I think I'm getting to the point where now I'm looking at like what's a nice, bigger
Yeah.
vehicle.
If,
But then I go and buy something ridiculous and stupid. And I'm
right.
45 and I still modify all my cars. You
Yeah.
don't even want to
So,
see what's happened to the Genesis Coupe. So I'll never lose that bug either.
okay. Well, that's I think that's healthy. But if I was the only driver of my cars, I would be I would feel more confident in having
Mhm.
19-inch wheels with no profile tires. But because I don't want my wife getting hitting a pothole and having a blowout. That's why I have 33-inch tires on 17-inch wheels, and even bigger on the Lexus for the same reason. My daughter got her license. She nailed the curb and it didn't even put it out of alignment. It didn't do anything. So this is the reason. If I lived in South Florida maybe or South Texas somewhere, I probably would have more car-ish vehicles. Or
Yeah, and
maybe
living
not.
in the
I don't know.
city, it's a different lifestyle than people like me in a
Yeah.
suburb. But you bring up a good point that we've brought up again on the show. Like when I'm reviewing cars, is you got to like think of who's the person that's going to buy this because everyone's like, oh, you're an enthusiast. You should have a manual, JDM Honda Beat or an E36 that you doing all this work to, and
I
it's
mean,
like
I've
that
been there,
doesn't.
done that.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's not practical for a lot of people
No.
where they are. Like, where are you going to put a project car while
Right.
you're
I
have
don't
like
I don't even
yeah.
have a driveway. I street park my cars.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
also much like you probably, we have between fall and spring we have winter, and we have this white stuff on the ground called snow, often quite a lot of it, and I don't like getting stuck, and I don't feel like changing tires to winters because I have nowhere to keep them. So I have, the snowflake rated all-terrain tires on each cars, and there's never been a problem. And that's just a peace of mind. It's another thing I don't have to deal with.
Yeah, and that's you get a different kind of snow out there in Boston sometimes. I mean, right in the city here too, it's worse. Where I am, it's not. I get snow, but we can clear it. But I have I'm in a house, so I actually have like four sets of tires. I think for the Genesis right now, and one of them is winters because I've always driven all my cars
Yeah.
through winter, but I always have winter tires because I have space to
Well,
put
I
them.
I think you have to by law put winter tires on, don't you?
Not in Ontario. It's only in Quebec.
Okay. All right.
It should be here because of how our weather fluctuates so much. Well, same with you. Like it freezes,
Yeah.
unfreezes, freezes. But we had a couple mild winters, and then this year it got us back. But knock on wood, I usually don't get stuck. I had an RX-8, a Miata, the Genesis. I've had a lot of rear-wheel drive cars, but good tires that are new works, but you need to have somewhere to put them, like you said.
Yeah, I had a 5 Series, and growing up in New Jersey, just outside New York City, we never switched to winter tires because if the snow came, it melted and was plowed right away.
Hmm.
But I started slowly moving to Boston, so I got a set of winter tires for my E34, and I had one of my best friends who he never experienced winter tires. So I'm like, hey, let me show you something, and I found this unplowed road. It was actually dirt road. It was unplowed that went a little bit uphill, and I took this rear-wheel drive 5 Series and just went up like a goat right up that little hill, snow-covered hill, and I could see his mind just being blown at that very time about how great snow tires are, or winter tires, I should say.
I did
And
one winter in my entire life of my own car. I grew up with my parents who had a Safari, so
mhm.
no limited slip,
Do
no
you have the
winter
half barn
tires.
doors in the back?
Uh, the no, we only ever had the two full swing
Okay.
outdoors. We had an Astro before it, but they
Oh,
like winter tires weren't a thing in the mid '90s. So
yeah.
I learned to drive on that, which in hindsight was great because it taught me so much car control. Because you had to,
Yep.
there's a lot of tricks you had to do to get that thing moving, and I would pile seven friends in because it was an eight-seater, and it would just go sideways and stay that way down a road. So I had so much fun in the snow on that thing.
I can imagine.
But when I got
Those,
my car,
those
I
things were
did 1 year
underrated.
on all. Yeah, oh yeah, I did 1 year on all seasons, and then I got snows, and I was like, oh, like why didn't I do this earlier?
Hmm.
Well, not snows, winters, but
You know something? I think that would be the reaction of just about everybody who drives in the snow weather and never experienced snow tires before, or winter tires before. They used to be called snow tires. Now they're called winter tires. Um, I think that would be a reaction of everyone, and I think the tire companies, if they want to sell them, they should actually just put people behind the wheel of these things, just so they can
yeah,
see.
yeah, because when they were snow tires, they were like knobby just to dig through the snow. But now as winter tires, like those people don't get too. It's the ice; they're amazing. Slush, they're amazing. Even when it's just cold, they stay a little more pliable, and
Yeah,
you can feel like I can rip on my winters when it's dry out, but.
yeah.
Anyway, we're getting off topic here. So,
I don't think we've ever been on topic.
yeah, well, that's the whole point of a podcast, right? You just talk about
Yeah.
whatever you want. So, I'll better let you go because I know it's late and you got some stuff to do. Um, where can people find you? I know we've talked about the site, but maybe give them the YouTube or the site or
So
where they
you know
can see
something?
you.
After writing about cars for 18 years, I got tired of writing. So I started a YouTube channel. It's got a solid like 133 followers. Um, I should have started sooner, but I was always comprehensive about my language, how I sound. I really, I'd gotten over it and took myself out of my comfort zone and started doing stuff like this. But I used to be very apprehensive about it, very shy about how I spoke in public. That's why I stuck to writing. And now I'm just like, I don't want to write 1,000 words about a mid-sized sedan anymore when I can tell you about it in about 5 or 6 minutes. It'll be more efficient for all of us. So I started this YouTube channel. I do mostly new car reviews. I did a lot of stuff from the New York Auto Show now, but I'm also working on some cool projects. I'm working on a JDM Hilux now. I have a benefit of having a friend who owns a performance shop, um, but the performance shop serves to cars, but it really runs the gamut. So one of his customers saw my JDM Prado because I did a lot of modifications to it because I'm a child. and he basically has a little bit more money than you and I combined. And he said, "Hey, take my Hilux. I want to use it on my farm in Baja California, and make it cool. And it's gonna be my runabout over there." And I'm like, "Okay, I can put something together for you." And I'm gonna start videos on that maybe next week, because it's gonna be a cool project. But videos is what I started doing, and all the kids do this nowadays. So I'm think I'm gonna go towards that way, and then occasionally write about each of the videos on Hooniverse and Lincoln back when I have the time. So Hooniverse and my YouTube channel is what is my YouTube channel? The Real Kamil. It's very original.
I'm gonna go subscribe right now.
Thank you. Wait, you not subscribed yet? And see where that goes. And I did it just to make life easier on myself. And
It's
you
funny.
can see
Sorry, go on.
the Hilux right on top. Interestingly, next to a UKDM Defender, and they're both
Nice.
right-hand drive.
And a big ram in the back.
That's his tow vehicle for his race trailer.
It's funny though, going through these stories, like how we kind of started and grew up different areas in different ways, but how similar we are. Because I'm the same way. Like I still write car reviews and I don't mind them, but I'd much rather make a car video now. Like I much prefer that medium, and it's what I'm really pouring into, and that's sort of why this podcast is here too.
I think it's an age thing too, where you just like, okay, I've been there, I've done that. I still like writing. I like writing like a deep dive stories. I really enjoy those, and I've done a lot of those for Haggerty at some point. So maybe with that time cleared up, maybe I can do some. Maybe I can tell you all about a transfer case difference between a Wrangler 392 versus the conventional one, which I've done before. There's two people who are really interested in that out there somewhere.
You need to combine your two worlds and like train swap into a car or something.
I gotta be careful over there. There's not much overlap, but I can invent something. You haven't lived until somebody saw somebody do an engine swap on a V16 engine where each cylinder has 564 cubic inches. It's a big engine.
Locomotive swap into a bus there.
Yes, maybe.
No problem.
I doubt it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mike.
You said, people can find you in Hooniverse and the Real Kamil YouTube channel. All one word. Don't try to space it. It'll find it easier.
I'll make sure to change that name soon just to confuse people.
Yeah. I don't know how much YouTube likes that if you just go around changing things, but we will definitely have you on again. Maybe we'll have some topics to talk about down the road or whatnot, and we'll be seeing you later.
Thanks, Mike. This was super fun.
Hello and welcome back to the Auto Guide Show. After a week off, we have Colum Wood back to talk F1. We just had too much New York to talk about last week. I mean, nothing ever happens in F1, so.
No, nothing. It's a boring week in, week out. Although maybe that's a criticism that some people make sometimes about some of the races. So we just need the Formula One rumor mill never stops, even if the race sometimes gets into a, what do they call it? Like a tire strategy or a tire maintenance session. So that never seems to happen in the rumor mill. So
just an aside, it's funny because I like F1 and I like another sport that I always liken F1 to, and I say baseball. Like if you just watch baseball not knowing what you're watching or just because it's a sport, you'll probably be really bored. But if you know all the intricacies of the strategy and what they're trying to do and what this pitcher versus that batter and how they hit, it's like F1. It's like if you don't know all the story of all the drivers and teams and what's going on, yeah, the action on track's not always that exciting.
Yeah, you're right. It's the story within, right? And it builds and it keeps you interested, and it's the drama behind the scenes. And it's particularly interesting drama with any sport because, there are all these, young people and they've got loads of money and they're wheeling and dealing. And there's so many great like characters in Formula One, right? All these, the Helmut Marcos and the Sergio, Flavio Briatore's and stuff, these sort of semi-sinister individuals behind the scenes who just don't give a crap about how they're perceived. And I love that stuff. So very interesting.
Yeah, almost every team principal is pretty interesting. Even the ones that used to be there and are gone. And it's probably because you need to have a certain characteristic that you can deal with, people who have never met you despising you all over the world.
Yeah. So your our first bit of rumor news is funny. We've got George Russell. We talked about him the last time I was on here, that he had this rumored deal. And just as we were coming on, I was like, oh, that deal, that actually wasn't signed, was it? And it's not. So that was like a 2-year deal. The rumor is that he was in the past week chatting with Red Bull. They said like low level or very, surface level talks, I guess. So I mean, I chalk this up to, I don't think there's any seriousness there. But I think it's, hey, if he's trying to get a better deal at Mercedes, I would make sure I talk to everybody as well to get the best possible deal and make sure they lock you in and you don't come somewhere else. So
You start rumors with this photo alone.
yeah,
We got his teammate in the background talking to Toto, and Christian's trying to get his attention over.
that's it.
in the
Christian's
foreground.
over here. George, look at me. Look at me. Although apparently Max and George don't want to race together, or at least Max doesn't want to race with George. But it could also be a smart thing because the rumors continue to, indicate that Max could always leave Red Bull. And if he does, like, holy crap, they're in trouble. Although, and now actually I'm going to do a bad job of not actually having the information in front of me here. There's some Red Bull driver who's coming up who there's more faith in, and I'll see if I can find him while we move on to another segment. But I think he won like the F2 race last time, and he was like the youngest ever F2 race winner, which I guess if F1 race winners are like 18, then I think he was 17 or 16. So I'll have to look him up. But he was he seems to be like Antonelli, that like they find these gems, and he seems to be one of them. So maybe he's the replacement for Max, and when Max ditches them for Aston Martin in a year or two.
It's about that time, right? Vettel kind of wore out his streak, and they brought Max in to take over. It's time for changing the guard again.
Yeah, it always is. Yeah, whether they force you out or sometimes you go because you need to, and sometimes you go because like they can't justify the increase you want. You see that, like you said, in all sports, right? The guys go to free agency because they're like, yeah, I'm not gonna. The team that's got you is only going to give you a little increase, and if you go out in the market, like look at like Hamilton, his salary like tripled going to Ferrari or more, like it was through the roof. So expect that. That's the real way that happens, right? So
I'd love to see Vettel. I'd love to see Verstappen when he's still somewhat in his prime going to another team, because so many times you see these guys go sort of past their prime, and it's a different kind of setup in car, and they can't adapt. Like the other car was built so much for how they drove.
yeah,
Hamilton looks like he's proving it wrong. Like he and Charles are pretty much on par. The last race wasn't that close, but yeah, like I'd love to see put Max in a Ferrari or McLaren or Mercedes and see if he's still up there. I think
because
he would be.
like and look at like Schumacher's a great example of he moved teams in his prime, right? And he actually went, and it's funny. I even forgot about this, and I went back and watched like that Schumacher documentary. That I think it was he didn't win till his 3rd or 4th year at Ferrari, to the point where people were starting to really say, man, Schumacher's not the guy, he's not going to be this. And it's so funny to look back and be like, wow, people actually were saying that in the first year or two of Schumacher at Ferrari, basically saying, yeah, Michael Schumacher, probably not a big deal. And it's like, oops. So
People to make quick judgment and write things off, that doesn't sound right. That's not people at all.
Not at
McLaren will never win a race. There's no way they could be a championship contender, and Norris doesn't have the maturity to win races. And I remember hearing that for many years. And maybe Oscar still might get the championship because he seems a little more consistent. But this could be like those Hamilton, Valerie, or even who was it before that actually won the championship off him, where it was just like the two of them ran away with it.
And Nico Rosberg.
Yeah,
like they were, but that was always the danger of them not having a number one, right? Like there was no number one, and they really fought it out. Versus that's when they brought in Bottas, was a clear number one, number two situation, which I think is always the smartest. So
yeah. All right, moving on.
Yeah. So,
nice.
Yeah, Cadillac. I mean, I don't know, one of these. I don't know if that was official press release or something auto-generated that's just been floating around for a while, but I guess they are now officially signed on as an engine supplier starting in 2029, and until then, I guess starting in 27, Ferrari will power the Cadillacs, which is a funny way of, I feel like that's one of the most bizarre ones we've ever had. There was the Infiniti branded Renault Lotuses. That was a pretty weird mashup for a few years, but Ferrari powered Cadillacs just sounds strange. So. But yeah, so it, eventually Cadillac, as they become a supplier, you have to think they're going to supply more than just them, and they'll have some customer teams. So I'll be curious who those are.
Yeah, me too. So it's 27. I thought they were coming in next year, but they're taking a year of the new regulations off first before they jump in.
You might be right, actually. Yeah. So yeah, 26. Yeah, next year is when Cadillac joins, and then, but yeah, the actual engines won't come in until 29.
Yeah, so 3 years with Ferrari, which makes sense. And Ferrari's, assuming not much changes, they're already supplying Haas, and they'd have Cadillac now. So
yeah,
have the American teams apparently like the Ferrari engines.
Yeah, because it's true, because that what they were, always the whatever Alfa Romeo, Sauber, whatever relationship becomes Audi. It's Audi's not going to run no Ferrari engines, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll get probably one of the more backmarker teams in 29 to use their engines. They'll give them a lucrative deal where, they'll pay half the price to get their engines or something, just because they'll want more engines for more testing out there on the field. So.
Oh yeah. The new engine stuff's going to be fun because they'll toss everything up.
And what's Cadillac going to do with it? Because their brand, unlike some of these brands, there's no direct translation. So it'd be cool if some of this tech gets into future actual Cadillacs too.
It would be cool if they actually, I don't know, marketed the brand a little better around the world, right? Like they still aren't. Nobody in Europe drives Cadillacs. Like they just, it's just not a thing, right? So, but I guess nobody in most of the world drives Alpines, and they still have a team. So, who knows?
Escalades show up in surprising places of all the vehicles. The one that suits the world the least is the
Escalades do. Maybe this is like the whole strategy is like, let's just focus on the Middle East. Let's just, they got all the Middle Eastern races now. Cadillac pushes hard there. And again, I think they're open to other makes and models, etc. Right? Versus like China just seems like you're never going to break through that wall. Like they had some success, the European and the U.S. automakers for a while in China, but it seems now like, those cars are just not going to. Chinese are going to buy Chinese cars, especially in the current tariff world we live in. So, but I feel like
we got decent foothold in Korea too, so there's quite a few Escalades there.
Yeah, when you were there, you saw them.
Because they had Daewoo, which is now Chevrolet Korea, I think they call it or whatnot. But there's actually Cadillac dealerships too.
Oh, that's
standalone
cool.
dealers. So,
but you're right, there was a real tie-up between like General Motors and in Korea there for a while. So interesting.
All right, so on to our final story before we wrap it up.
Yeah, so this is just a quick FYI. I think we're all curious about if this. I saw side story. I saw a tweet the other day about something saying that basically this movie was terrible. Somebody who reviewed it and blah blah, and then it turned out it was a joke. It was like a parody account. It just wasn't a very good parody account. So I was like, okay, no, that's not it. Your eye is drawn to negative things, right? So I saw that. I'm still nervous about this movie, but we'll see how it turns out. I'll try and keep an open mind. I'm putting it out there because June 27th it comes out. There are going to be 2 post-credit scenes. So when the movie's done, sit in your seat and watch it, because I think people always. This is my public service announcement. People who always go to the movies and then leave right away and they don't watch those and then they kick themselves in the butt because they're like, oh, I wish I had seen it. I don't imagine there's anything revolutionary out of it, but hey, who knows? Maybe a cool little, Lewis Hamilton cameo or something.
Yeah, I'd assume it's something cool for F1 fans more than like sequel stuff. We can thank the Marvel comic universe for making post-credit scenes an absolute must in every movie, because it seems like that. Like, it doesn't matter what you watch now. And even if there's no plans at all for a sequel, it's like, well, we'll put a teaser and that'll be a sequel because we get the green light, here we go. But I don't think that's the case here.
Yeah, you make some teaser. No, who knows, right? Maybe it's just Gunter Steiner swearing for a while.
Let's just hope it's more like Days of Thunder and capturing the essence of the sport than, say, Driven.
Yeah. I'm fingers crossed. I don't have a lot of hope, but we'll see. I really hope I'm wrong is the way I think about it. So.
Well, yes, and so am I. So we'll leave it at that. So thanks for joining, and we'll be back next week. And it's is it race week again next week, or do we have one more week off?
No, the week of the first sort of week of May, basically. That's Miami. So this coming week, which is the week behind us now for people listening, no race. So my wife was asking me, because I woke my son up this morning and I was like, it's Friday then, and that always makes me think of Lando Norris singing that when he was driving. And so whenever I sing that, my wife's like, is it race week? I'm like, no, it's not race week.
And Haas should have a 25% advantage, right? Because everyone has to import to the US.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Take care, Mike.
All right, see ya. All right, we will wrap things up quickly here. So this week, Kyle and I have been doing a comparison between two electric pickups, a Chevy and a Ford. What a surprise, Chevy Ford pickups. We had thoughts. We will have all that info in a couple weeks' time.
Yes.
And then next week, we don't travel, but we embark on a massive comparison.
Yes. I also want to point out that this week I was gone for 36 hours, driving the new Volkswagen GTI and Golf R. I say new, they're lightly refreshed. And so we'll talk about those next week. But yes,
And the original.
yeah, and I drove the original, well, not the original Golf GTI, I drove the Rabbit GTI.
Yeah, we didn't get the Golf.
Yeah, but as Mike said, we are doing a mega comparison this upcoming week, and those are always a lot of fun.
8 compact cars. The most shocking thing might not be that we're doing 8 cars, it may be that there's still 8 compacts available, because it seemed like so many disappeared, but there's still a good handful out there.
Yeah, we're just never going to do a mid-size sedan one again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple left at least. At least there's not just the Accord and Camry, but
The
you know what,
Camcord.
most people have stuck it out except for the Americans. And I mean, if I built cars primarily in the country that's SUV crazy, why would I build cars? I mean, it just makes financial sense. So yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, so that wraps up another episode. We'll be back next week. We will probably be exhausted from our week, and we will have a very interesting guest on that I think you'll want to listen to. So until then, this has been the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors, and we'll see you later.
So long, everybody.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.